Right, in this video we are going to be looking at setting up Maven to compile Groovy source code. And what we have here on the screen is the Groovy Eclipse plugin. There's actually about 3 or 4 different plugins for Groovy, compiling Groovy with Maven. And some are no longer supported and some are still supported, but they've got different capabilities. And probably the most versatile one is this Groovy Eclipse plugin. That is the one that we are going to be looking at for the course. Now, there's some nuances to this plugin. And when we set it up, we can see here we're hooking into the Maven compiler plugin. We're going to be doing some settings in there. We're adding in dependencies. This Groovy Eclipse batch plugin, you want this version to match your Groovy version. So you want to be on the same version there. And the problem is, let's take a look here. Up in Maven Central, it looks like they stopped publishing to Maven Central in 2015. That is the most recent artifact there. However, in the Groovy repository, in the Groovy plugin repository, they do have current releases there. So 254, if I look at the Groovy release, 254 is the most recent one, came out in November of 2018. So that's what I'm going to go with on this. But to do so, what we need to do is we need to come in here and add in a repository. Now, coming up in the course, we got a lot more talk about using repositories, but this is a good opportunity for us to specify a repository because by default, Maven is just going to be looking at Maven Central. We haven't told it to look anywhere else. So in this case, we are going to tell it to look at the Bitray Groovy repository. So I am going to grab this source code right here and toggle over to IntelliJ. And first thing I'm going to do is set up a branch. So I'm coming off of master. I'm going to set up a branch called Groovy, and we'll be working with this project. So right now I've set up a simple project. We have one class. It's not even a main class. It's just a simple class that says hello world. It gets a string, returns back hello world. And that is in main Java and no package there. So very, very simple application of that. So let's come into this guy. And what we want to do is set up plugin repositories and add that in like so. That's all we need to do there. And I generally like to keep these towards the bottom of my palm. And then the next thing we need to do is come back over here and this configuration for, grab this whole configuration here. And I am shamelessly cutting and pasting because I really don't think you guys want to sit through and watch me type all this out. I'm going to toggle over to IntelliJ now. And what we want to do is set up that build section. And we'll just paste that in like so. And we can see that we haven't brought down these versions yet. And that's why they are red. I think IntelliJ needs to index them. So you can see that these were staying red, and now that I went into the Maven plugin, or Maven window for IntelliJ, I ran the compile command, and now they are downloading these versions. And while that is happening, I'm going to come back over here, and we also need to include in the dependency for Groovy itself. So that copy to the clipboard, and I'm going to come back over here and add that in as a dependency. Now you can see that I have a mismatch here on the dependencies of the Groovy Eclipse batch. So let's come back over here. I'm going to take a look at the Groovy Eclipse batch. So we're in the Groovy. We do have the 254-1. So that is the version that I want. I'm just going to make sure I get that. And we can see that is in the background, IntelliJ is going through and resolving these dependencies. While it is doing that, we ran into a build failure. Let's try this one more time just to make sure. I was changing the palm as it was running, so it might not be happy about that. And you can see that the build did complete, and now everything. It took a few minutes to resolve these artifacts. And what was happening here, we were downloading from we can see it's the bitrate.com, so it's bring down from that repository. So apparently it doesn't look that big, but must have had a slow connection with them, so it took a few minutes for that to download. So let's close out this window. And now we can see everything is set up here. And what we can do now is we can come up to source main, and we will do a new directory. Call that Groovy. And one thing we want to do after this, you can see how that is not highlighted. If I come in here and do a re-import, it's going to tell IntelliJ to re-index it. And IntelliJ is smart enough to look at Maven, and now it knows that we do have that Groovy as a source folder. So now I can say new Groovy class. Go ahead and add that in. And we'll declare a main method like so. And what I want to do is prove out that we can actually say hello with this. So we can come in and say, so let's see if we can run this. Oh, get hello. So that should work. My Groovy foo's a little rusty there. So because I named it as get, so that's implying that it's a getter, and I can omit the method call and treat it like a property inside of Groovy. So kind of nice, and we don't need that. So we can clean that up a little bit. So been a month or two since I've done any Groovy, maybe a bit longer. So, but now we can run that. And if I had unit tests going, we probably could set those up and prove out that everything was happy. Let's go through and clean this. And let's run the package goal and make sure that everything does, in fact, package properly. We can see that we do get a build success. And I do want to take a look at the classes generated, and we can see that it does go through and it generates the Groovy hello class and the hello world class exactly like we wanted. So even though up here we have Groovy hello and Java hello world, there's two different classes from two different directories, and they get combined down and compiled into the same class directory. So everything looks good here. This project here would now support development using both Groovy and Java. And if we needed to write test cases as well, they would go under test Java or test Groovy, and everything should work from here on out. And I will leave a reference in the README to the Groovy Eclipse Maven plugin, so you can read more about that. I'm not going to be able to go through all the particular settings that are available for it. There are a lot of versatile things that you can do with it as far as setting up the source folders and whatnot. By default, I'm following the standard conventions in it of source main Groovy and source test Groovy. So long as you follow those kind of conventions, you save yourself a lot of configuration. But again, I will leave a link in the README, which will be in the README branch. So this README right here, I will leave a link to the documentation there should you need to refer to it.